Welcome to Breakthrough Success. I'm your host, Mark Gabberty, the content marketing expert, bringing you 5 new episodes every week where I and top-level guests teach you how to take your business to the next level and achieve your breakthrough. Hello, Breakthrough Success listeners. I just wanted you all to know before the episode actually starts, I've been working a little bit behind the scenes to give you something really special. So a while ago, I wrote my book, Content Marketing Secrets, which helps people create, promote, and optimize their content for growth and revenue. And I just put the finishing touches together to offer that for free to anyone who is interested. So if you want your free copy of Content Marketing Secrets, all you have to do is head over to markgabberty.com/book. Now, let's jump right into the episode. In the business world, there are a lot of Me Too brands. There are a lot of, I see this person doing A, I'm going to do A as well. But if you want to be successful in business, you need to stand out. And this is something that we hear very often. It is also something very important. But how can we stand out in such a way that we also make a profit in addition to the whole standing out? That is what we are going to focus on in this episode. And who better to dive into this than today's guest, who is the founder of Fans First Entertainment and owner of 2 multi-million-dollar teams, the Gastonia Grizzlies and the Savannah Bananas. He's been featured on MSNBC and is a keynote speaker all over the country. And he promotes his motto, if it's normal, do the exact opposite. In his latest book, Find Your Yellow Tux, today's guest shares how to become successful by standing out. Today's guest for episode 206 of the Breakthrough Success Podcast is none other than Jesse Cole. Jesse, it is such a pleasure to have you on the show.
I am pumped. That's a great intro. I feel like I'm ready to come up to the plate here and take a couple swings. So thanks for that, Mark.
Jesse, it is a pleasure to have you on the show. I love the baseball reference there, especially since you do own 2 teams. And I am really looking forward to going in this interview, seeing you hit some home runs during this batting practice that we do. But before we get deeply into how we can stand out and make a profit by doing so, I'm wondering if you could give us some idea as to why you decide to write the book, Find Your Yellow Tux, and the whole idea behind it.
Well, long story short, I played baseball my whole life, was in love with playing baseball, was fortunate to get a full college scholarship to play baseball, and tore everything in my shoulder. And that ended my baseball career. And right after that, I got offered opportunities to go into coaching. And I realized something, sitting in a dugout with some of the best players in the country and watching the game. Watching baseball is not the same as playing baseball. I was bored. And I realized something that, hey, baseball needed to be changed. So right out of college, I got an opportunity to be a general manager of a baseball team at one of the worst performing teams in the country, right outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, in Gastonia. And I showed up that first day and found out only 200 fans were coming to the games. There was only $268 in the bank account, and the team had lost over $100,000 a year. So I realized that I had to change the game of baseball and make it all about entertainment. And so basically at that point, we changed our whole model. And I challenge most businesses to ask the question, what business are you in, but what business are you really in? And I realized we weren't in the baseball business. So we started having dancing players, grandma beauty pageants, burying diamond rings in the infield dirt. I was getting in the dunk tank. And a few years later, I realized, hey, we're about the show. I got to be dressed like a showman. So on one night, 2011, I got a full black tuxedo with tails. I looked like P.T. Barnum, and it was 105 degrees outside, and I almost melted. So I said, this isn't going to work. So I searched online, brightcoloredtuxedos.com, find the yellow tux, and I bought it, had it shipped the next day, and started wearing a yellow tuxedo, and it caught on. It fit me, and literally from that point on, I realized, what makes you stand out? And I ask everybody that, and I ask businesses that. What makes you stand out? What makes you different? For us, Our games are a circus. We have a breakdancing first base coach, a senior citizen dance team called the Bananas. Our games are unlike anything else, and it's why we've sold out every single game and have a wait list in the thousands. And you got to find out what makes you different. So for me, I own 7 of these yellow tuxedos. I wear them all the time, and my whole book is about finding that thing that makes you stand out, the best version of yourself and the best version of your business. And I show the whole framework through the last decade in the sports business and how you can apply it to any other business.
And it's like you took an existing model like the baseball game and you made some changes to it. And like there are some people who they may be looking to make changes standing out in a model that's been around for a very long time. And just as Jesse did with his baseball teams and continues to do, there are ways where you have a very old, very established system, long history of this is what should be happening, and you could flip it on its head a little bit by just getting creative with it. And I'm wondering, like you mentioned that you own the Grizzlies, but you also have the Savannah Bananas. I definitely covered that in the intro, but one of the things I'm wondering is what is it like to own 2 baseball teams, like the work, responsibilities, all that fun stuff, money, and how did you end up with them? Can you talk to us a little bit more about that?
I went from zero debt to millions of dollars of debt pretty quickly. That's how you buy baseball teams. No, it was I learned in Gastonia what we needed to do to make a successful team, and we started being crazy with the promotions, the entertainment, and more than anything, Mark, and I think all the listeners can learn from this. It's not just standing out by being crazy and wearing a yellow tux. It's standing out by providing the best fan experience in the world. And what we look at with our whole business, and I think every business should look at that, it's not just about customers, it's about fans. There's something special about fans. They're passionate about something. They'll wear the jerseys, they'll wear the merchandise, they'll tell everyone about it. When you think of the biggest fans, the fanatics, if you can create those with your business, you can be unbelievably successful. So we built everything about this fans first mentality. And here's a little secret, is that we believe our biggest fans are our employees and they're our players. So we focus even harder on them to give them the best possible experience. And it's why we've had 0 turnover since we started 3 years ago in Savannah. And it really shows you that that's what matters most. So you asked the question of what it's like owning a baseball team. It is, every day is a roller coaster. It is wild. I mean, for us, like I said, every single game sells out. So we are well over 4,000 fans at the ballpark every night. We have a director of fun who literally puts on a show every night. We pie people. We have a pep band that plays in the plaza when people are coming in. We have fans dressed up in banana costumes. Our players are dancing. It's just an absolute circus. So from a financial standpoint, for us, Mark, it was an extreme challenge when we first started. In Savannah, Georgia, there was professional baseball here for 90 years. Professional. We're low, and so everyone knows we're college summer baseball. There's Major League Baseball, Triple-A baseball, Double-A baseball, High A, Low A, rookie ball, independent professional, top-level college, and then there's us, way below them. But we're the only team in the country out of all those selling out every single game. And it's because we had to focus on the experience and creating attention. When we first started, Mark, we showed up and the former team had cut the phone lines, they cut the internet lines, and it was me and our 4 staff members working on an abandoned picnic table in an old storage building, and no one cared. We sold 1 season ticket the first 2 months. We were bleeding. And in January, I got a phone call that we overdrafted our account and we're completely out of money. And it was that point my wife and I had to sell our house, empty out our savings account, and go all in on this team. And it wasn't until we created unbelievable attention that people started buying from us and realizing that, hey, we are different. We're about having fun. And that's when we named the team the Savannah Bananas. People were like, what are you guys doing? You're going to be an embarrassment to this city. The owner should be thrown out of town. But what happened is they started noticing us. The fact that we were doing all-you-can-eat tickets that included all your food and everything for $15. The fact that we were having dancing players. And all of a sudden they said, you know what? This name fits. We're going to give them a chance. And once they gave us a chance, everything turned around. And, fortunately now we have over 200 part-time staff. We have over 15 full-time year-round employees with Savannah, and we're a multi-million dollar business. But it took getting people's attention to understand how we do put fans first in everything we do.
And you did have to make the changes, obviously, to entice people to come into the stadium and to drive a lot of attention, standing out from the traditional game of how you would normally see it. It's not as much like you don't really see players doing a lot of dancing or fans dressed up in costume, like banana costumes, as you mentioned, or anything like that. And you also mentioned that standing out, it's not just like putting on a yellow tux or doing something crazy just to get attention. There's that whole idea of enhancing the fan experience, or for a lot of business owners, the customer experience. So some people, like, they may be trying to stand out. They may be thinking of ways to stand out, but they're not necessarily sure how this whole thing of standing out can make them revenue. Like, they may see, oh, Jesse did it, but he could be an exception to the rule or something like that. So how can people stand out, and by doing so, make revenue for their businesses?
And I talk about this in the book. The starting point is the mirror moment. I don't know if you saw the movie Jerry Maguire, but the movie opens with a mirror moment. And he's like, you know what? I'm a sports agent, but it can't be like everyone else. We can't just constantly about more, more clients, more money. It needs to be less. We need to be focused more on relationships. So he wrote this whole memo and he stayed up all night, brought it into the office, gave it out to everyone, got a standing ovation, and then he got fired. And it was he had that mirror moment. Now, I'm not telling everyone to go get fired, but what I'm saying is look at your mirror moment. What I mean by that is put yourself in your customer's shoes. What frustrates you about the industry that you're in? What frustrates you about your business? When you have that mirror moment, that is the starting point for all innovation. When you think about Uber and Lyft, they thought about all the frustrations of the cab industry. Think about Airbnb. They thought about, wow, there's some frustrations with the hotel industry. Let's create something different. What about Netflix? Dramatically different because Blockbuster was brutal. So for us, we realized that baseball was long, slow, and boring, and that it needed to be fixed. And the fan experience was bad. So by creating that, we were able to create this unbelievable customer experience. So we started there and we said, all right, let's have all you can eat tickets, include all your food, your soda, everything. No more nickel and dime. Let's not make the game long, slow, and boring. Let's make it nonstop entertainment. And that's where we started. So again, what frustrates you about the business and industry? And then what's that perfect customer experience? You put those two and two together, you can stand out in any industry, in any field.
And I'm like, it's really I like that idea of putting yourself in the customer's shoes, because in the end, like, I feel like that's something that you hear a lot, but you do have to think about the perspective. And in some cases, you can be the customer too. I mean, if you've been to a single baseball game, you've been a customer, even if you've seen it on TV. Sometimes it's not just about putting yourself in the customer's shoes. Sometimes you actually are the customer, and it's also good to think of other people as you're creating business plans. And the customer is obviously very important for any business, and you emphasize creating a good experience for any customer, and like your focus is coming up with ways to enhance the experience so it's nonstop entertainment, as you mentioned. But for business owners, how can we enhance the experience our customers have with our brands? What are some of the ways we can do that?
Well, let's start with you. All right. So you have a podcast. You're also putting out content. So let's think about how's the first way that people get in touch with you, the first people connect with you. What do they see? What does your website look like? That first time they interact with you. For instance, a lot of websites, they have so much crap on it, and it's about their business. It's not about how you can help the people that you work with. What value do you bring? I was able to spend some time with Donald Miller in StoryBrand, and he says, you confuse, you lose. On our website, we make baseball fun, and we show how people can have fun with us. So the first time they interact with you. What about, Mark, if you're selling something, what happens after they buy from you? When people buy tickets or merchandise from us, the first thing they get is, congrats, you just made the best decision of your day. Right now, as you bought your tickets, we grabbed them. We ran around the stadium, hoisting them up in the air, celebrating. Now we're doing Gatorade showers over each other, and your tickets are now in our vault and ready for you to go bananas. And then after they buy, they get a phone call from one of our staff members thanking them. Not saying their credit card didn't work, just thanking them. And then when people show up at our ballpark, we have our players greeting them when they're coming in full uniforms. We have our pep band playing. You think about that perfect experience. We have a director of first impressions that when people come into our office, she comes up, she stands up, she shakes their hand or gives them a hug, offers them a drink or snacks. Now, again, that's from a retail environment. What does that perfect experience look like? So, I challenge whatever business you're in, Think about that customer journey. The first time they interact with you, whether they see you on social media, what does it look like? Is your message clear or is it not? And then when they work with you, how responsive are you? Do you respond quickly, or is it something you take days to respond to them? Picture yourself in the customer's shoes. What would you love from that experience? And that's how we look at everything. We even pay our bills, and our finance director, who pays all our bills, writes a handwritten note to every single bill that we pay, thanking them for the service. And we're paying them. We're sending them a check, but we're thinking of that fans first moments. So I hope did that give you some examples?
Yes, and I liked how you talked about different parts of the journey, because it's like you mentioned that first impression, having someone in charge just for creating a good first impression. That's something that I don't feel like you hear about a lot, but it's something very important. But it goes beyond the first impression also, because you could be a customer for a brand, love the first experience, but then things change, or you don't receive the same amount of respect or courtesy as you did that first time. So it's also good for brands to not only give that good first impression, but continue to stick with it and continue to care about the customer and engage with the customer, even like long after that first interaction. You feel like that customer is set to continue being a customer.
No, 100%. 100%. And I think, too, another important point is, what's the last impression? The last impression makes a lasting impression. And so after someone comes and experiences you, do they hear from you again? Do you see how it was? Do you write them another thank you note? We think about that constantly. Once someone leaves, not everyone tells you about their experience. They may have had just an average experience. They won't buy from you again unless you connect with them and follow up and see what you can do better.
And that follow-up is something that, like, the success is in the follow-up. You hear things like that, but the only way to experience that success is to follow up, and it's something that it becomes a habit if you continue to do it. And I'm wondering if you could share with us, like, how do we get good at the follow-up? Because I feel like so many people know it's important, but and it's so simple to follow up, but sometimes people just forget, or it's just not necessarily on the top of the to-do list. So how do you recommend that we do a strong follow-up and actually do follow up?
Well, I'll give a shout out to one of my colleagues. I was speaking in Phoenix at a big event, and the final speaker was Joey Coleman. And he'd be a great guest for your show if you haven't had him as well. But Joey Coleman wrote the book, Never Lose a Customer Again, and talks about the 100 days after a customer works with you and how crucial those 100 days are, the first 100 days. And he talks, he has a whole system from videos to emails to call. He has everything set up. One thing that I do is it's very easy. The way phones are these days, I just do a quick selfie video after, whether I go and give a speech, and I just quickly say, hey, had an unbelievable time with you guys. One of the most engaged audiences I've ever had. Really love what you guys are doing. And send a video to the organizers. Just text it to them right away. And then they have a thank you letter. Again, it's those personal touches. Now emails are becoming kind of, faceless. It's just an email. You can't see the personality. But can you do a quick selfie video and send it to someone? That is easy. And, Joey talks a lot about that, and I've done that a lot, and it's been a game changer. When you're asking someone for something, do it in a video sense, or you just want to thank them, do it in a video. So that's an easy, practical step, but you need to have a system to it. And I think Joey makes the great point. You don't have to do it for everybody. We have hundreds of thousands of fans here. We can't have the same exact system for everyone, but we pick some and we do certain things that are special and over the top. I think those make a big difference. And think about the stories that your company's telling. They're not going to tell stories about every single fan, but certain fans, they'll have amazing stories about what you did after they came to the game and how you made a great experience last. And that's what we focus on.
And I really like that idea of creating the video and just doing a quick selfie video of just thanking someone or something like that, because it's definitely something different from receiving an email. And like, communicating in general is good, but there are some forms of communication that are just naturally better than others, like videos better than just sending an email because it feels more customized. It feels like you put more work into it. A telephone call being more valuable than those, and obviously a face-to-face being the most powerful. But when it comes to business in general, one of the things some people feel is that they are a little stuck with where they are, and they're having difficulty achieving some of the business goals that they've set for themselves. So I'm wondering, what do you believe holds most businesses back from standing out and achieving the level of profitability that business owners set for themselves as goals?
That's easy. And you referenced it a little bit in the beginning. Well, the me too, to be a little bit better. Businesses don't think big enough. I work with so many businesses and I talk to them and they're like, we're hoping for a 10% growth. We're hoping for a 5% growth. As soon as you focus on small growth or sustaining, you get complacent. And when you get complacent, you die. It's about reinventing constantly and thinking big. So I see so many companies, they're like, we want to be a little bit better. We want to be a little bit faster. Well, as soon as you try to be a little bit better, a little bit faster, you're not standing out, you're competing. We're trying to play a different game than everyone else. What game are you playing as a business? Are you playing the game where you're competing, trying to be a little bit better than your competitors? Or are you trying to play in this whole different game that no one's even competing with you? I know for a fact, no one is doing a lot of the things that we're doing at our ballparks. We're the only one doing these all-you-can-eat tickets. They're the only one doing the breakdancing first base coach. We're the only one their players dance. We're the only one that probably gives away Porta-Johns as literally gifts during the games, all right? We have only one that sells banana underwear. So people, when you become the only, there's no competition. And so stop looking at being a Me Too business and learn how to think big. So like, for instance, I'll share with you right now, we've been substantially profitable, blown away by our profits, blown away by our growth. But I'm not satisfied because I realize we have a much bigger impact we can make. I don't focus on revenue as much as I focus on impact. While we've sold out every game, while we have a wait list in the thousands, it's only a certain amount of people that we're impacting. So what I'm thinking big is, how do we take this on the road? How do we grow this? How do we have more events? How do we really change the game of baseball? So we talk about that. We're actually having a retreat right now, the whole staff. What's the next big picture? You know, I don't want to just have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50% growth. How do you 10 times it? You know, if you're a $5 million company, what would it take to be a $50 million company? When you think like that, you start really reinventing and start innovating. When you think about just 10% growth, 5% growth, you're in trouble.
And I definitely agree that you'd have to, like, if you have a big vision, you're gonna want to work to achieve that vision. If you just have a vision of like 5% growth, that's not really getting you out of the bed quickly to do the work. Like, the smaller the vision, the less likely you will want to put in the work, because you don't really see as much of an upside upon achieving that vision. And like, you've achieved a lot of growth. Like, you talked a little bit about that, the beginning days where you went from no debt to millions of dollars in debt very quickly, part of the nature of owning a baseball team. So I'm wondering if you could share with us how you got through that challenge, how you got from basically, like, there's no website for the team, there are no phones for the team, and being able to build that, being able to 10x it, because I really want to get into where you were before the success happened, like in the millions of dollars of debt, on that picnic table. I really want to get into your approach for getting through that challenge and achieving the growth that you achieved, and what your mindset was like too.
Well, just 2.5 years ago, my wife and I were sleeping on an airbed. You know, it was right after we sold our dream house, and, you know, we weren't sure how we were going to make it through that. And what it comes down to, and I talk about this in the book, it's about sometimes you have to go all in. And we took so many small bets. We tried all these crazy promotions, but we realized that in Savannah, they were going to be ready for this. It just took the time. It took creating attention. So, you know, to go into the numbers, I mean, like I said, in January of 2016, we had very little revenue. We were bleeding. We went through all our money, and we had to empty out our savings account. It was on February 25th, 2016, that we came out with the Savannah Bananas name, and all of a sudden merchandise started selling all over the world. People started looking, who are these guys? Wait, they're crazy. What are they doing? And at that point, we started going crazy in the idea of reaching out to every single person in this community. Our sales staff was talking to everyone. Here's what we're doing. Here's why it's a great thing. All you can eat tickets for $15. We're actually doing fundraising tickets. We're giving back. So we started hitting the phones hard, hitting the community hard, and constantly coming up with things to create attention. You know, we had an abandoned puppy that was left here. We took her in and named her our bat dog. I mean, we literally came up with we offered Obama an internship after he lost his presidency, or I don't think he was no longer the president. We started coming up with crazy things every couple months to stay in the eyes and ears of our customers while we were continuing to reach out. So We went from just thousands of dollars making a month, I mean, literally nothing, bleeding, to being able to sell over 4,000 tickets for every single night. And, I wish it was just like, hey, it was easy, but it was all about creating that attention. What does that fans first experience look like? And then being relentless on the metrics that matter. We don't sell tons of sponsorship here. A lot of different sports teams, they focus on selling advertising and billboards. We focus solely on tickets because we realize if we have a sold out environment, that's what we can do best. We could put on the best show, provide the best fan experience in the world. So if whatever company you're part, what do you think you can be the best at? And go all in on that. A lot of times companies try to go do a little bit of everything and then you become nothing to no one. So for us, we focus relentlessly on our experience and our ticket sales. And then now that every game's sold out, and we've sold out for a couple of years straight, the advertising, the merchandise, all the other food and beverage, all the other forms of revenue takes care of itself. So what is that lead metric? What's that one thing you can be the best at? And that was the game changer for us, Mark, if that makes sense.
And it does make a lot of sense to just focus on a few things instead of spreading out to so many different areas as you focused on the ticket sales and the experience.
I would actually go focus on one thing. You said, a few things. Focus on one thing for yourself. What one thing, what one tool would you be the best at? Is it the podcast? Is it Twitter? If there's one thing that you can become the expert at. A lot of people try to be good at a lot of different things, but you want to be the expert at one thing. And I think that's a challenge. Entrepreneurs get so excited about putting their hands in so many things and the squirrel effect and the shiny object syndrome. But even yourself or whatever business is in it, what can you be the best at and go all in on that? And again, in 4, 5, 10 years, you can always pivot, but become the best at one thing. And I think that is what most entrepreneurs, they struggle with.
And I agree about there are obviously so many different opportunities that come up, new opportunities that come up along the way. That is definitely something that we just had to learn to tune out and just focus in on one thing. But one thing I do want to mention is that it's not like Jesse had the team for 20 years and gradually built it to where he was today. One of the themes of entrepreneurship is that you need to be patient. You need to wait several years for the success to happen. But Jesse was able to go all in and achieve massive success from millions in debt because of just buying a baseball team to having two multi-million-dollar baseball teams. And it's just one thing I want all Breakthrough Success listeners to take away from this episode is that, yes, patience is a virtue, things like that. But if you work harder and smarter than everyone else and you have that unique angle, that one way that you stand out, you can achieve the massive growth in 6 to 12 months instead of 6 to 12 years.
Yeah. Well, and you never can substitute hard work, but if you're working your butt off on something that you are constantly competing against everyone else, if you're that me too, you could be working 24 hours a day. It won't matter. So again, it's that question. I ask everyone, what makes you stand out and what makes you different? And very few people have an answer to that. And I challenge people, once you know that, then you can go all in and put all the work, because then you're going to start smooth sailing as opposed to constantly competing and having challenges.
I really like that approach to just thinking about what is making you stand out before putting in the work, so you have more direction and more intention behind the work that you're putting in. And one of the things that I believe on Breakthrough Success is to acquire as much knowledge as possible. That's why I really enjoy doing all these interviews with everyone on the show. And one of the questions I have for you, Jesse, is if you could share with us 3 great books that you believe will have a positive impact on us.
Yeah, that's one of the toughest questions. It's almost asking who's your favorite kid? And because I read about 100 books a year, and not only do I read, but we have book reports. And I'll challenge anyone. A great thing I learned from Arnie Malham, who did write a great book called Worth Doing Wrong. He started the Better Book Club and literally started paying his employees to read. And every time they read a book, he would pay them. And we started this at Fans First Entertainment, and we've literally paid thousands of dollars to our people for reading books, because reading is where you can learn, where you can develop, and where you can grow. And so we pay people $50 a book, $75 a book, $100 a book. So reading is a huge part of our culture. We have a library set up here at the stadium, and for me, as I'm constantly reading, it's really what am I in the mood for? But I always come back to, and one of your guests, a couple books. John Gordon is amazing. The Carpenter, great book, Love, Serve, and Care. I will always go back to that one. The next one, I would have to go to Everybody Matters by Bob Chapman. I am so focused on culture, and he's got $1 billion business that he built an unbelievable culture. And then the final one is Peak by Chip Conley, who had his own numerous hotels and then started working for Airbnb as one of their top executives. But he talks about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs and how to put that into your customers and your employees. Those three are really big picture that have motivated me and inspired me that I always come back to.
Jesse, thank you for sharing those great book recommendations. Those will be in the show notes, markgilberti.com/E206. And if you guys want a free book that will show you how to create, promote, and optimize your content for growth and revenue, you can head over to markgilberti.com/book to claim your copy of Content Marketing Secrets. And before we wrap up this episode, Jesse, I've asked you several questions throughout our time together, but what do you believe is one question that we need to be asking ourselves more often?
I'm going to go back. I'm going to keep repeating myself on that. But what makes you stand out? What makes you different? And put those two together. You ask that question every single day. I think that'll drive you. And I'll give a little add-on to that. I always say be patient in what you want for yourself, but be impatient in how much you give to others. Often what makes you stand out and what makes you different is the value that you provide to others every single day.
Jesse, thank you for sharing with us that great question, all of your great insights throughout our time together. And if you guys want Jesse's book, Find Your Yellow Tux, that will be in the show notes. Again, markgilberti.com/E206. But Jesse, once again, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show and sharing your great insights with us today. It was such a pleasure to have you on Breakthrough Success.
And love what you're doing. I love how hungry you are to learn and to share those lessons. So thank you.
How does over 100 retweets per day sound to you? My free ebook, 27 Ways to Get More Retweets on Twitter, has you covered. I use the methods within this ebook to get over 10,000 retweets every single quarter. To learn